Every day, people are taking your energy and you're taking people's energy as well. But we don't even realize that this exchange is happening. James Redfield wrote this book called the Celestine Prophecy. And in the book, he outlines, amidst telling an adventure story about finding these prophecies, these ancient pieces of wisdom in Peru, he talks about the 4 energy leeches and he unfolds their existence throughout the story. And we all use these strategies to take energy from people, and other people use these strategies to take energy from us. It is a constant push and pull, but we don't have to do that. What we should do is make our own energy, and the production of this energy has nothing to do with other people. It's a very personal thing that's different for everybody. And in this video, I want to dissect the energy leeches, what they are, what their strategies for taking energy from you are, which one you are, because you're one or all of them at any given time, why we do this, so where this comes from, and what to do about it. When you're in an uncomfortable situation, you can literally feel the energy being leached off of you. You start to not feel like yourself. You become maybe quiet and more reserved. You feel embarrassed or awkward. Your face flushes. This is because people that you're with are taking your energy. The opposite of this is being with a group of people who exchange energy more like a mutually beneficial game where you're passing the ball of energy back and forth. This can be experienced in a healthy band or on a sports team, or maybe a marketing agency where collaboration is happening and everybody's on the same page. This is really good, but a lot of the time we do find ourselves in situations with people who are leeching off of us because they likely don't know how to make their own energy, and they also don't realize that if they were to just give you energy and then you were to give it back, it would be a more sustainable way of feeling up, feeling good than taking from others. When you were young, you were put into situations that you didn't have any control over because you were a kid, and your parents or your relatives or your adoptive parents, whoever it was, your caretakers, they were bringing you places and putting you in environments that you didn't choose to be in. And because of this, you had to develop coping mechanisms for dealing with the energy exchange between other people. So the 4 energy leeches are the intimidator, the interrogator, the aloof or indifferent, and the poor me. The sooner you can recognize which one you are and recognize who is taking energy from you using one of these strategies, the sooner you'll be able to figure out clever ways of making your own energy so you don't have to depend on this system anymore. An intimidator uses aggression and fear to build up their energy. So think of, a middle school bully, how they would bully kids, put them in a locker, whatever it is. Obviously, I don't think kids get away with that anymore, but, an older movie maybe. That is the intimidator. So a modern day equivalent of that, or an adult equivalent to that, would be, a cranky CEO of a company, an overly aggressive boss, a jaded trades worker, something of that sort. And these people gain their energy by seeing the effect that their aggression has on others, if you let them. They develop this coping mechanism mostly because they were brought up in that environment. That's how their parents were. Their parents were intimidators. They picked that up from them, and they began to understand that that's how you get ahead in life. That's how you get the things you want, is by intimidating people. An interrogator asks you a million questions in a almost inconvenient way or a uncomfortable way, and they don't rest until they've gotten the answer that they want from you. They're digging for something, and when you give them something, that gives them energy. So an example of this is maybe you have a spouse, maybe you've been working hard all week and you're feeling kind of tired, and that's it. You're just beat, right? And maybe they ask you, what's wrong? And you say, nothing, I'm just tired. And they say, no, something's wrong. What's wrong? And you say again, well, nothing. I'm tired. And then they delve deeper. They say something like, well, I know you were having a hard time with that client at work. Is that what this is about? And when they ask you that, you start to wonder, well, maybe. And you tell them that. And then they bite into that even harder. Effectively, what you've done is you've given them energy because you've emotionally opened up to them, because they were likely in an environment as a kid that was not conducive to emotional and open conversations. Maybe they were with abusive parents growing up and their parents didn't open up to them emotionally, so now they use it as a coping mechanism. It's burned into how they carry themselves, because this is how they're used to getting things from people, is by having to try really hard and really push themselves and the people around them to invent problems that don't exist. Poor me is pretty self-explanatory. The poor me constantly complains about all of the issues that are going on in their life without actually addressing any of them. So every conversation that you have with a poor me when they're going through something is going to be the exact same. You could have had the same conversation with them 4 times over a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, and every time they come back and say the same thing again, you want to tell them to stop. You want to just rattle their cage and get in their face about it, but you care about them, and so you listen and you give them sympathy and you say, oh, it's okay, don't worry about them, they're horrible, or don't worry about that thing that didn't work out for you. Essentially, a poor me was babied as a child. Say something bad happened at school and a kid made fun of them or something like that. They would come home and mommy would say, it's okay, sweetie, you're perfect. Here, have some chocolate cake. That'll make you feel better. That feeling is what the poor me is trying to obtain in their adult life. And it's energizing to them and makes them feel good. An aloof individual is challenging to nail down, and you almost don't even notice that it's happening. Somebody who's aloof is indifferent. So when they're hanging out with you, you guys are doing something together, they stare off into the distance. They don't seem like they want to be there. They could be there, could not be there. It doesn't matter to them at all. And so you ask them, like, what's going on? Is everything okay? And they almost gawk at the fact that you ask them a question that's so stupid. Well, yeah, of course, I'm fine. Maybe you delve deeper and say, you sure? Because you're acting kind of funny. No, I'm fine. What happened in their childhood is that they had an interrogator of a parent themselves, and they learned that by closing themselves off and remaining indifferent made them sort of invisible, and so they got to retain any energy that they had. Anytime they do this aloof, indifferent thing, they get energy from you inquiring into what's going on, or is everything okay. It's like a drug to them. It makes them feel like you care about them, which is something that they were starved of at some point in time. Once you start to understand the warning signs of these different types of energy leeches, you then are able to figure out how to disarm them. When you're dealing with an intimidator, let's use the example of the character of Marty in the series Ozark. When he first came across the Langmore family, he used his intellect to disarm an uncomfortable situation. They were very aggressive, they were being intimidating, and he used his mind to bring them down to a reasonable conversational level. And this can be used with any intimidator. Don't push back with your own form of aggression, because this will just make the situation worse. Much like a single light can light up a dark room, you're not going to make it light with more darkness. When you're dealing with an intimidator, try to think about them as a child, because this is when this way of being was instilled into them. Picture them as an 8-year-old having a temper tantrum, because a lot of the time when an intimidator is acting out, it is a cry for help. If you interact with that as another intimidator, then it's just going to blow up into a nasty mess. You be the adult and don't belittle them, don't talk to them like a child, but use your intellect. When you're dealing with an intimidator, just do not engage. Keep your truth and own that truth. So going back to the spouse example, your spouse asks you, what's wrong? I'm just tired. No, something's really wrong. No, I'm just tired. And you stay firm on that, because that's all that's wrong. There's nothing else that's wrong. Now, how do you get out of that loop? What's wrong? I'm just tired. What's wrong? I'm just tired. You simply spin the question back on them. They will ask you a couple times, no, what's actually wrong? One of those times you say, God, I'm just tired. It's been a long week. How are you though? How was your day? People love talking about themselves, so give them that opportunity, and that will give them energy, which is a great hack to remember. It's hard because we don't want to be misunderstood. We don't want to be bothered by the fact that somebody thinks something's wrong with us and we have to answer for ourselves. But knowledge is power. And if you can see the signs and you can recognize that somebody is potentially interrogating you, especially based off of their family history and just the way their mind works, then you can do this. Spin the question back on them, let them talk about themselves. They'll get energy that way, and then they'll forget that they were interrogating you in the first place. When you're dealing with a poor me, you want to help them because you care about them, you love them, and they trust you enough to come to you with their biggest problems. But again, what happens is you have the same conversation with them 7 times in a row and nothing has changed. You give them advice about how to deal with the problem that they're facing, but every time you talk to them, they're telling you the same thing again. They haven't actually done anything with the advice that you've given to them. And this takes your energy because you're giving to them. You're giving them objective, common sense solutions to the problems that they're having. They're doing nothing with it. And that makes you feel stupid or something. It makes you feel feelings of regret. Like, why did I even put myself out there? Why did I spend the time trying to help this person? This will always happen. Listen to them, but don't offer them any advice connected to the very thing that they're going through, because nobody wants to be told what to do. Even if they say that they just want you to tell them what to do, or they're thinking that that's what they want, nobody actually wants that. So listen until they're done, listen actively, and then tell them some story that's got nothing to do with what they're complaining about as far as the storyline itself. It should be related to what they're going through. So if somebody was complaining to me about how hard life is and I don't have all the answers and I want to do this thing, but I just don't know how I can even do that, I would listen to them, let them talk about it at length for as long as they needed to. And then I would maybe share a story like the one where I drove out west one day with like $300 in my bank account and I had no idea what was going to happen. But I got out there and ended up staying with my cousin for a bit and helping her with her kid. And then I found a job and then I started making a bunch of money. And then I kept trying to leave that job and they kept giving me even more money. And by the time I came back home, I had a new truck, a new perspective. My bank account was full. I had a new career opportunity I was coming home to because I made that connection out there to call this photographer, and he said I could work with him when I got back home. And me taking that chance, driving out west with nothing was the best thing I ever did for myself, because I didn't know all the answers, but it just worked out. And in sharing that story with this person, the idea is that they can see a different perspective of another character going through something, and it worked out for them. So then they think, well, maybe it'll work out for me too. But when you tell them this story, don't expect them to get anything from it. Just share the story because you can, and if all else fails, just tell them they'll figure it out. When I was going through some stuff and I was trying to sort my head out, I had asked my mentor at the time what I should do, and he said, you'll figure it out, because he was wise. He was in his 50s and he knew that there was nothing that he could say to me that would help me solve whatever psychological ailment I had. I had to figure it out myself, and I would, because he believed in me and he knew that I could figure it out. So that's what he told me. You'll figure it out. That's a great thing to say to somebody who's going through a bit of a poor me situation. Dealing with a poor me is challenging, but you will find your own creative ways of disarming them. If it helps, just remember that their problems aren't your problems. As much as you want to make them your problems, they never will be. And by putting yourself in situations where you are making other people's problems your problems, it's going to really deplete your energy drastically. Dealing with an aloof person is as simple as flipping the script. They're actually the easiest ones to deal with. I had this friend who's doing better now, but there was this long stint, many years, where he would come and see me and he was just very aloof. Like, he would stare at the ceiling. He'd be off in space, or he'd arrive and he'd have to do this series of weird, very private rituals before he could talk to me or anything. And it just makes you feel kind of weird. And you want to ask them hey, what, you doing okay? But you know better and you don't ask them or anything. What I started to try was I would become aloof myself, but not actually aloof, because I was consciously doing it, I guess, strategically. I would read or edit photos or write in a notebook. And then when they were ready, when they were done being aloof, they would come to me and give me their attention, and instantly I would be there. Yeah, what's going on? What's up? I would not continue to be aloof because, again, that's the tit for tat thing. 2 wrongs don't make a right. Don't do this to spite them. You're doing it to teach them. the best way to deal with an aloof person is to lead by example. So be present, give them your attention instantly. When they engage with you, they'll tend to just rise to the occasion. Now that we understand the different energy leeches and how to deal with them, we have to turn the lens back on ourselves and think about which ones we are. And you are at least one of them. We all are. Nobody is perfect at all. I still fall into them from time to time. You will always fall into them from time to time, even knowing about them and not wanting to take energy from people like that. If you constantly complain about your life to people that care about you and they listen and, they make you feel better, like, yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that happened to you, that kind of thing, like, you're poor me. If you throw your weight around and you get in people's faces and kind of ruffle their feathers, then you're an intimidator. If you're hanging out with people and you kind of feel low energy and weird or something, you just kind of go and keep to yourself and you hope somebody asks if you're okay, then you're aloof. And if it drives you crazy not knowing what's in somebody's head and you have to ask them a bunch of questions to get something out of them, then you're an interrogator. Now that you realize that you're doing one or multiple of these things, you need to figure out clever ways of building up your own energy. When I have a multi-meeting sales process that I'm going through and then I close a deal and the first payment comes in for my business, I get a burst of energy. It feels amazing. When I have a breakthrough in an edit that I've been fighting with, I get a burst of energy. When I watch how my dog behaves when I'm in the forest and she's off leash, that's energizing. When I'm hanging out with my brother making dumb videos with him, that's energizing. It's energizing to be in a big group of people for me and we're experiencing some kind of adventure together. This list goes on and on for me, and your list will be different than mine, but those are the things to delve into. Be aware of the fact that you're using these coping mechanisms for essentially external stressors that are coming into your consciousness, and do everything you can to not do these things. Just be. When you participate in activities that give you energy, you can just be. You don't have to take energy from anybody because you have infinite energy. And you don't have to give that energy away to anybody because you know that they're trying to take it and you know that there's a better way. And potentially you can just show these people that there's a better way without belittling them or telling them they're wrong for taking your energy or there's some kind of con artist or something. You can gain a lot more energy by just doing your own thing and creating it for yourself instead of depending on removing it by force from other people. I came across this concept nearly a decade ago, maybe even more than that. And it's a concept that I will take with me forever. And I learn more and more about myself and the energy leeches and how I leech energy from people every day. It's really important to remember that energy is everything. Energy flows. It leaves you and goes into another person. It comes out of another person and goes into you. And ideally, energy is released from experiences that your consciousness resonates with. And you can use that boost in energy as fuel to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish in life. So pay attention, remain conscious, respectfully and calmly disarm the people who are trying to take your energy from you, and don't do it to other people because it's kind of like a drug, and we all know what happens with drugs eventually. They lose their effectiveness and you have to find something else. Essentially, if you keep taking energy from people and you don't even know that you're doing it, you'll find yourself confused one day when they don't want to hang out with you anymore. So isn't it more wise to learn how to paint or learn how to play guitar or start writing, take up some sort of hobby that includes a group of friends that gives you the energy you need to thrive?